today we get to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time, and that is The Batman, The Dark Knight Rises. Now, this movie often comes under a lot of scrutiny when I'm watching a lot of review channels where they say it's, out of the three, they say it's the worst. But for me, when it comes to the trilogy, I believe my number one, because I love the villain and I just love the story, will be The Dark Knight. And then the second is The Dark Knight Rises. And then the first one, I think that's Batman Begins. In that order, I didn't really, and I think I rewatched it though. I rewatched Batman Begins and I didn't enjoy it as much as I did The Dark Knight. I widely consider The Dark Knight Rises to be one of the greatest movies of all time for many reasons. One of the primary reasons is the exceptional storytelling and character development by Christopher Nolan. He directed the film masterfully, weaving together a complex and thought-provoking narrative that explores themes of power, justice, and redemption. The characters in the film are also incredibly well written and well acted, with performances by Christian Bale as Batman, Tom Hardy as Bane, and Anne Hathaway as Catwoman. They all received critical acclaim in the States. The Dark Knight Rises is considered a cinematic masterpiece. Its visual and technical prowess, Nolan and his team of filmmakers used cutting-edge technology and filmmaking techniques to create breathtaking action sequences and stunning visuals. From the film's opening sequence where a group of criminals rob the Gotham Stock Exchange to the final battle of the streets of Gotham, the film is visually stunning and incredibly immersive. I'm constantly thinking about how did they shoot, when you remember the opening scene whereby they arrest Bane and they get him on a plane, and then he's like, oh, what's your plan now? He's like, well, to crash this plane. And you're like, wow, how did they shoot this? I don't know if you guys have ever checked out the behind the scenes of that or how we made this shot, and the way that Christopher Nolan likes shooting everything in camera. You're like, whoa, how do you even do this, man? This is epic. And this was way back, because I remember this was probably in 2012 when this movie came out. So you're like, the technology was not as crazy as it is right now. But this guy's made Inception, so I'm pretty sure they could have done whatever they wanted. Another reason why I consider The Dark Knight as one of the greatest movies is its ability to address and comment on real-world issues. The film delves into complex and relevant themes such as economic inequality, political corruption, and the role of the government in protecting its citizens. The film's portrayal of Bane, a revolutionary leader who seeks to overthrow the wealthy and powerful, is a commentary on the growing divide between the haves and the have-nots in society. This is something that you pick up in the movie as it goes, how there's a big distinction between those who have money and those who have. One of the most impressive aspects of The Dark Knight Rises is how it manages to be both a commercial blockbuster and a thought-provoking art film. The film is perfect balance of high-stakes action, engaging characters, and thought-provoking narrative that makes it a cinematic experience that is enjoyable for both mainstream audiences and critics alike. Finally, it's worth mentioning the film's impressive musical score by Hans Zimmer, which perfectly captures the epic scale and emotional weight of the film. The score perfectly complements the visuals and the story, aiding in the extra layer of depth and meaning to the film. When it comes to The Dark Knight Rises, I consider it one of the greatest movies of all time for its exceptional storytelling, character development, and visual and technical prowess, ability to address and comment on real-world issues, and this balance of being a commercial blockbuster and a thought-provoking art film, and a musical score that perfectly complements the film. The film is a cinematic masterpiece that is sure to be remembered and studied for many years to come. When I listened to the book written for Christopher Nolan, and they were highlighting how he went to a Catholic school and stuff like that, I sort of understood why when it comes to his movies I have an understanding, because we sort of similarly have the same upbringing. I went to a Catholic school and I was brought up within these rules and values. So when I'm watching a lot of his movies, it's like there's a tonality to them where you're like, I can so relate. When you're watching the movie, when Bane is within the shadows and he's hidden below the sewers, you're like, what is this man doing under the sewers? And it brings that nostalgic feeling of thinking that underneath the surface there's a world there. Underneath the ground there's an entire world that's operating, and you're like, I don't really know if that's how it works, but okay. And the way Batman goes through his journey of self-discovery when they throw him into the pit and he has to discover who he is, and they're telling him the story of the kid. There's a lot of lessons within this movie that I feel a lot of people miss out on, and a lot of critics hit on. A lot of times, I don't understand criticism of movies, because sometimes it just feels like it's people who have knowledge of what things should be, but rather don't understand how things are made, that criticizes things and criticize the storytelling. Like, you're watching a movie that's almost 2 hours 30 minutes, and someone has created a philosophy within the movie, the values within the movie, and you have the different structures of a movie where we're going from act 1 to act 2 to act 3 to 4, 5, and it lives within these rules, but as well is the creative prowess of Christopher Nolan. I think for me, one of my challenges with it was the conclusion. Like, I didn't want Batman to die, but at the end of the day, that was just a conclusion for Nolan. And in my Tenet review, I made a connection between that, how that bomb is connected to what happens in Tenet, and how it's connected to what happens in Oppenheimer, right? So as a fan of the director, you start to see how he's weaving his thread within his movies. One thing I also liked about the movie was Anne Hathaway's character, the way she sets up Bruce, but it shows the conflict within her and what she wants. Like, the different narratives within this movie are worth watching it over and over again. And as someone who's watched the movie almost 20 times, I'm glad to be able to do it and to have a channel where I can come and speak about these movies. Let me know in the comment section what you thought about the Dark Knight Rises of the trilogy. How do you rank them? Which one is your number 1? Which one is your number 2? Which one is your number 3? Are Christopher Nolan's Batmans your favorite? Are you a fan of the other Batman? If you guys would like me to do a review of the other Batman, I'll look into it. I watched it. I wasn't as impressed, but it was quite good, and I feel like I didn't understand it. Like, I didn't understand. I didn't like the Ben Affleck Batmans. Yeah, I'll say it. And I haven't watched like the Jack Nicholson ones, and I haven't watched like old school. Like, I mainly just watched those 3, so that's why my ranking, I was like, oh yeah, this is quite simple. I think Heath Ledger's Joker was phenomenal, and no one would touch him. Like, that performance was just amazing. With that said, subscribe to the channel, leave us a like, leave a comment, and I'll definitely be seeing you guys in the next one.